Hello and welcome to this video. This is another video that discusses the January 2023 cutoff numbers for the Diversity Visa Program. In this video, we will be finding out whether the high increases observed in the cutoff numbers for the month of January 2023 are justified. So let's go into that. To begin, let us see on what occasions should the cutoff numbers in the visa bulletin be increased very high. We have said that on a number of occasions. The movements that you see in the cutoff numbers in the visa bulletin on a monthly basis are actually meant to create a balance between the number of cases that are qualified to be interviewed and the number of visas that are available for those qualified cases at that moment. And this task is carried out by the visa office every month during the fiscal year. So on the one hand, we have the cases that have met the necessary conditions and qualified to be interviewed, which we could refer to as the demand for visas. And then on the other hand, we have the visas that are available for those cases, which we could refer to as availability or supply of visas. When demand for visas is projected to be higher than supply, in other words, when it is seen that the number of cases that have qualified to be interviewed are more than the number of visas that are available to serve them, the cutoff numbers in the visa bulletin should be moved just a little bit to accommodate a small number of new cases, since there are not sufficient visas to cover the ones that are already waiting to be interviewed. And in cases where the demand is so high that it far exceeds the availability, in such cases, the visa bulletin cutoff numbers should not even move, logically speaking. Because if you do not have visas to serve a large number of applicants that are waiting to be interviewed, why accept new cases? And then the other way around, when it is seen that the number of visas that will be available will be more than the cases that will have qualified for interview at a given point, the visa bulletin cutoff numbers should be greatly extended to accommodate new cases, since in fact there are sufficient visas to cover all of the old cases and possibly those that have been added. There are even cases when the visa bulletin numbers are regressed, that is, they are returned to lower numbers because the visa office realized that too many cases had been made illegible for interview, whereas the number of visas that will be available will not get close to serving all of them. So that is the logic that is behind the movements that we see in the visa bulletin cutoff numbers on a monthly basis. And so whenever there is a high increase in the visa bulletin cutoff numbers in the diversity visa program, it should mean that it is projected that fewer cases will be eligible for interview as compared to the number of visas that will be available to serve them. But in the case of the January 2023 cutoff numbers, is that the case? In other words, in the month of January, do we expect to have many visas available, whereas there are fewer cases to be served by those visas? And the answer is no. Obviously, we continue to hear applicants complain that their case met the conditions to be scheduled for interview for some since the month of August. For others, it was September, October, or even this month of November. And so as we enter the month of December, is it likely that all of such cases will be interviewed during the month of December, so that when we enter the month of January, the number of cases that will be eligible for interview at that time will be far fewer than the number of visas that will be available? The answer remains no. And that is one reason why early on in the fiscal year, there shouldn't be a very high increase in the visa bulletin cutoff numbers in the diversity visa program. Remember that right after the diversity visa lottery results are released in the month of May, applicants begin to rush into submitting their DS-260. And so you have DS-260 submitted in the month of May, in the month of June, in the month of July, and then by the time you get to August, where the first cutoff numbers are released, you see that many cases that have already submitted their DS-260 for a period of 3 months start to become current for interview. They become eligible, or they qualify for interview immediately. And that trend continues throughout the first few months. We can even say during the first half of the fiscal year. And that is why it is unusual to have a very high increase in the visa bulletin cutoff numbers during the first half of the fiscal year. Another thing that high increases in the visa bulletin cutoff numbers early on in the diversity visa program could suggest is that there are extensive case number ranges in the regions concerned. Let's take, for example, if we had in the Africa region the highest case number to be 150,000, we could say in order to get close to that highest case number, that is why the visa bulletin cutoff number has been increased massively to 20,000. So 20,000 for January, perhaps 40,000 for February, 60,000 for March, 80,000 for April, and so on, so that by the time we approach the end of the fiscal year, we would be close to reaching the 150,000 highest case number. Or in the Asia region, if we had the highest case number to be 75,000, for example, then we could say that in order to approach the 75,000 by the end of the fiscal year, that is why the cutoff number has been moved to 9,000 so early in the program. So 9,000 for January, perhaps 20,000 for February, 30,000 for March, 40,000, and so on, to allow us to get close to 70,000 or 75,000 by the end of the program year. Or in Europe, in case we had 100,000 to be the highest case number in that region, we could say because of that, the cutoff number for the month of January has been moved to 15,000, so that the following month it may be moved to 25, and then 35, 45, and so on, to allow us to get close to approaching the 100,000 highest case number. But do we have such high case numbers in the DV 2023 program? The answer there is no. It is true that we do not know the highest case numbers in the program as yet, because the first SEAC data have not yet been published. They will be published, as you already know, on the 1st of January 2023. But quite recently, I made a video in which I explained that even without having the first SEAC data, it is still possible for you to know that you are not going to have a case number in the Africa region, for example, as high as 100,000. The highest case numbers in the Africa region are generally 60 plus thousand. It is true that you may have 70,000 or say 80,000, but those are rare cases. And whenever that is, the cases that have such high case numbers are very few. So the highest case number in the Africa region for the DV 2023 program will not be as high as 100,000. In Asia, it will not be as high as 50,000. In Europe, it will not be as high as 60,000. In Asia and Europe, usually we have the highest case numbers to be in the late 20,000s or 30,000. And so from this second point of view, are the high increases in the January 2023 cutoff numbers justified? There, once again, the answer is no. There are a number of things that I suspect to have been at the origin of such sharp increases in the January 2023 cutoff numbers. And in my next video on this subject, I will be discussing those issues. And so that is what we will have on the menu in our next discussion about the January 2023 cutoff numbers. Which brings us to the end of today's discussion. Thanks for watching the video. Do not forget to make your voluntary donation in support of this channel by clicking on the Donate Here button at your upper right hand corner on the channel homepage. And I will see you, God willing, in the next video. Until then, goodbye.